international character, infuses the higher education ethos, and that's always a welcome, attribute to have for young people who might have left their homes for the first time, right? I've seen or I've heard, I've met people, young Nepalis, who, with much excitement would land in the United States, but end up in this suburban college in the middle of Kansas with no Nepali in sight, right? So this international character, I think the universities are also adept at handling what issues come up regularly, and that is a very important point to note. Even with the Australians who study alongside you, there's also a unique character. I've noticed. Let me add that I've had the good fortune of studying on 4 continents. I did my high school in Nepal, I did my undergraduate in Europe, I did my master's in the United States, and I did my PhD in Australia. So having studied on 4 continents, I can speak with some authority on the relative merits of the respective higher education system. So what I'm saying is, in the UK, for example, or even in the US, the volume is so big, the scale that you're talking of is so big, the society is so stratified, that often universities end up assuming a distinct class category, right? And that's something that I didn't see in Australia. And when I explored why, it turns out that Australian students are encouraged to really go into higher education, and they're enabled by the state with very concessionary loans. There's a famous student loan scheme called HEX. You can borrow quite generously from the state, and once you start working, you pay off. So it's a very world-famous scholarship scheme that enables access, inclusion, and and fosters meritocracy in a relatively healthy democracy. So that international character, married with that very uniquely Australian policy innovation, I think stands out. And this is in contrast to other Western university ecosystems. Universities don't exist in isolation. They have to be embedded in the society at large. So they are located in cities and towns and villages. And what is unique about Australia is that it has 4 or 5 world-class cities, and many of the universities and colleges that folks would be joining, you'd also be enjoying that urban ambience and that urban lifestyle. And it turns out 3, 4, maybe even 5, depending on other rankings, in cities in Australia, tend to rank in the top 10 of the most livable cities anywhere in the world. As an economist, I refer to the Economist Intelligence Unit quite frequently. So their latest Global Livability Index ranks Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide right in the top 10 of the livable cities. What does that mean? It means less crime, it means great educational facilities, it means great healthcare, it means great outdoors and culture and arts, and it also means great infrastructure, right? So, and generally, it's cities like Copenhagen and Vienna and Vancouver that also rank equally well. It's the bigger cities like New York and London that tend to fare less well. And this is something to note because you're spending a precious part of your life in a city, and if you happen to be one of the most livable cities in the world, I think that's a great plus as well. The 4th issue I would remark on is the relatability with Nepal, right? So Australia's population is almost comparable to Nepal. We're at just a shy of 30 million. Australia is at 28 million. So in terms of size, the population density, it's comparable. So many of the things that it is able to pilot and execute, we can actually take away lessons for Nepal as well. While noting the caveat that we are at very different per capita levels, but 100 years ago, maybe Australian per capita income was comparable to where Nepal is now, $1,500 in today's money. But the size, the way policies are piloted and then rolled out and applied is highly relevant to Nepal. The size of the Nepali diaspora now is close to 300,000. Now, if you normalize that by the host population, That's 300,000 divided by 30 million, close to 30 million. It's an amazing ratio. The same numerator applies to the United States, but you have a denominator which is much larger, which is 330 million, right? So relatively speaking, the size of our Nepali diaspora is very, very significant in Australia, and this is, for me too, it's a recent phenomenon. This was not the case when I was a student there, but this is something to note. I'm sure there are flip sides. There are stories of struggles and where people have fallen through the cracks, etc. But that sizable community also gives the Nepali diaspora there the clout, the voice to speak for you, to represent you, and all that. Fifth, and I end with this, what I loved about Australia, the society, is the egalitarianism that you see in all walks of life, the informality, and this urge for constant reforms. In the economic sphere, in the social sphere, it's a fairly progressive country when it comes to social issues, when it comes to environmental issues. But even in the economic realm, which I tend to scrutinize more, I'm very impressed with tracking the reforms since the 80s that really rejuvenated a moribund economy, infused it private sector energy and enthusiasm to make it very dynamic. Of course, it's a dual, sort of structurally bifurcated economy. You have a very dominant resource sector, and you have a modern manufacturing and services sector. So one tends to often negate the other if you don't manage well. But Australians tend to manage their economy very well. They've steered their engagement with a rising Asia very smartly while maintaining the legacy ties with the West. And so there's a lot to be learned there. The society is very informal. You won't face too much hierarchy. It's a very easygoing place. This notion of fair go is something to be appreciated. And I think all these issues are worth emulating, bringing back home, and applying to the extent we can. So I'm very fond of Australia. One of my own brothers is now a citizen of Australia. He says, "What are you doing in Nepal? Are you mad? Just come here and live with us." But we make our career choices. He's happy with his, I'm happy with mine. But every day in everything that I do as a public servant, as an elected MP, formally as a policymaker, even in my international career, I do think there's a little bit of Australia that I carry with me, the values, the ethos, the rigor, and the respect for diversity. So I wish you well, and I do need to leave, but I wish this event successful, and if there's an occasion to interact with you in a different setting, I'd be happy to offer my advice. And folks who are looking at higher education, especially PhD, on which I have first-hand experience, I'd be happy to share my experiences and insights. So thank you very much.